All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is our IDIQ Maintenance Construction Informational Meeting. Just want to go over some changes that the department's looking to make. Unfortunately, Glenn is not able to join us today. I know on the agenda that we had sent out, it had down for Glenn to be here, but that was, of course, Monday, and due to the ice and weather, we had to push this back to today, so he's unable to be here. But we do have the chief engineer, Chad Winchester, here, so he'll just do a brief intro and then we'll get started into our presentation.
Yeah, my purpose, Chad Winchester, Chief Engineer for DOTD. My purpose here today is just to welcome everyone and sort of state our intent of this presentation. We're really trying to generate interest in these IDIQs that we intend to go out with. I want to emphasize that the things that we're presenting today are not set in stone. We're to just get information out there of what we intend to do, but also get feedback if you have any about ways that your opinions that might make our proposed program better. So again, thank you for being here. Feel free to share your questions and comments. And with that, turn back to our construction division head, Matt Jones.
All right. Well, thank you. Also, my name is Matt Jones. I'm the construction administrator. I'm part of the IDIQ team. We have several members here with us today in the conference room. And if y'all have questions, I hope they'll chime in to help me out with answering some of these questions. Again, this is one of our T4 LA initiatives. So we're trying to roll this out statewide, trying to use some different delivery methods for contracting to do construction work and maintenance work. And with that, we'll kind of go through the agenda. Let's make sure I click the right stuff so that we can move that forward. All right. So of course, the agenda, we're going to go through what is IDIQ contracting, the contract structure, how we're going to bid it and award it, financial and bond requirements, because of course that's important for contractors, the operations and management, the various contract items associated with the work, and then of course want to get y'all's feedback. So questions, comments, concerns, certainly want that. If you don't want to speak up today, certainly send that to us. You can send it via email. My email address is matthew.jones2@la.gov. Please make sure you send it to matthew.jones2 because there is a state trooper named Matt Jones who does on occasion get my emails, and he usually is very happy to send back wrong Matt Jones. So make sure you get it to the right people, and we'll try to make sure we get everything answered as accurately and as soon as possible. So what is IDIQ? Well, as y'all can see on here, that means indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. So what is that exactly? Well, normally on our projects, we have a set work scope. With these, it's indefinite. So we could have 10,000 widgets, 100,000 widgets. It kind of depends. Same with the time. The time, normally have a set contract time, whether it's 30 working days, 60 calendar days. Each task order has its own duration. So the total length of the contract is based on really the amount of money that we're going to end up spending. What we're looking for is, of course, something that provides us a little more flexibility in getting more contracts done rather than bidding each project separately, having to go through that advertisement process. We're wanting to be able to do a lot of the same sort of work all at the same time in the same areas so that we can get more work accomplished in a shorter amount of time. So between a standard contract and IDIQ contract, the difference, again, full scope is already defined up front. And we can send this PowerPoint out too. I know y'all are taking pictures of it right now, but we'll send this out. I can send that back out with the meeting invite or send it to AGC and y'all can send that back out. But generally it's, one procurement. It's one bridge or might be 3 bridges in the same general area that we're working on. What we're looking to do with the IDIQ is we're splitting this into the north regions. So 04, 05, 858 will be kind of one bundle of projects, and then South Louisiana will be another bundle of projects. We could have multiple bridges. They could be located all over. So again, the same sort of work. We're talking about patching, joint sealing, structural patching, structural repairs. That's the type of items that we will be looking at. But again, it could be on multiple bridges, multiple areas. So we would do a task order for each one of those general areas. Normally, a standard contract, again, it's limited to that particular work zone. We could be working on I-20, 165, LA1. There's a lot of different areas we could work on with these IDIQ contracts. And again, each one of those would be defined in your task order. So it provides us flexibility. We can do these things faster. We can implement those task orders. We've already, some of y'all might be aware, but we do IDIQ for professional services already for our consultants. So engineering services, things like that, we already utilize IDIQ for those. We're just looking to expand that to construction and maintenance projects, much like a lot of other states across the country do. So the contract structure, generally it's the same general structure as our standard contracts. We're still using our specifications. It's still the same general items that you're familiar with bidding on. Just some of the conditions change, where typically you have a notice to proceed, you get started, you have an assembly period. These projects, you will have multiple notices to proceed based on the number of task orders that you have. Again, it allows us more flexibility. But each task order defines the work. So it's not that you're going out there blind. We will upfront say, all right, you've bid on these projects. You've given us a bid price for the items of work. And then we're going to come back and say, all right, for bridge A, we need items 1, 7, and 12 taken care of with these amount of quantities. And we issue that notice to proceed for that task order, and you get started if you're the contractor that's awarded the project. Again, the unit prices, they are pre-established, so it will go through the bid process just like any normal project. We are anticipating having a special letting for the IDIQ so that it's separate from our typical bid build projects. That way, it's obvious to everyone that's bidding on it, this is a separate type of contract method, so that you're not anticipating a regular design bid build. We want to make sure we're putting that out there. Our anticipated time frame, we're wanting to advertise this in February with a special letting in March. But again, we need some feedback from y'all to make some final touches and determinations. The work is issued with contract limits. So again, each task order is specific to a certain area, certain contract time frame associated with that particular task order. So while again, this is an indefinite duration or indefinite delivery, each task order will have its own specified time frame. So it might be 20 days, 30 days, 45 days. Again, these contracts can go up to 5 years. So just want to make that known to everybody. It can be up to 5 years depending on the funding and how quickly we go through it. Another thing we are anticipating with the IDIQ, what we are planning on doing right now is the single award method. We are anticipating doing a multiple award. So in that case, we would have multiple contractors all put in proposals. We may select 2, 3, 4 contractors, depending on the size and scope of that particular IDIQ contract. We are anticipating doing some legislation for this next session so that this is available. Also, we are looking to federalize this as well. So that's also part of that legislation. The current projects that we're going to start with are state funded only. So there's no federal requirements associated with it. But we are looking to get that federalized so we can get some additional funds, make our dollars go further with a 80-20 split, and utilize more projects. So again, multiple award is in the future. Just want to make sure everybody's aware. There are different contracting methods. There's a single award, multiple task orders, single task orders. There's a lot of different flexibility contract types. But again, what we're rolling out with to start with are 2 contract types for each North and South Louisiana. I'll kind of go over that in a minute, but just know that we are looking for some legislation. So again, if y'all see that come through, we'd like some additional feedback and buy-in on that. So the bidding process, again, we're going to solicit just like we do any normal design bid build. There'll be an advertisement. Like I say, we're hoping to have that out in February for a March letting with that 30-day notification. You'll submit your bid through BidX just like you do a normal project. Again, we'll have all of the items associated with the IDIQ contract listed with quantities, and that's what you're bidding on. One thing to keep in mind, you're bidding on the total quantity there. There is no guarantee that we will do all of it, but we're trying to get prices. So it might be we go over certain items under other items. So we want to make sure everybody's aware of that. But we will have quantities that we anticipate that the IDIQ contracts will encompass so we can get bid prices. We'll review that just like every other bid, award it to the appropriate IDIQ contractor, and then post award, that's when we'll start setting up the specific task orders. So when you're bidding on this, it won't say we're doing US 165, I-20, LA1, 425, anything like that. It'll just be a general, these bid items without a specific location. Later on for each task order, as we negotiate that, we'll say, all right, we're going to work here. We're using these items. This is what we want you to do. And then, of course, each task order, we'll track that just like a regular contract. We'll make sure quantities are paid out, contract time is charged, traffic control is taken care of, all of those items that we typically do on any other contract. So the financial and bonding requirements. On the front end, you will not have to set up your performance and payment bonds. Those will be associated with each specific task order. So whereas normally you bid on a project and we go to award it and we fill out the paperwork, the contract documents, that's when you typically submit those performance payments and retainage bonds. For these types of contracts, you will only issue those once we get a task order associated with it, and it'll be just for that specific task order. Now, one thing to keep in mind, you do need to have sufficient bonding capacity for multiple task orders at any one time. So again, we're going to try to make sure we have in the bid proposal, if it's, $4 million, make sure you have bonding capacity for $4 million, but that first task order might be 500,000, 200,000, something along those lines. And so each time you just need to make sure there's sufficient bonding capacity. There is a maximum contract value that we're looking at for each one of these projects. Max for our structural concrete IDIQ is 5 million. Max for our, go ahead.
Not specifically to concrete.
Okay, well,
Steel.
yeah, the structural repair. So the structural repair IDIQ 5 million. The bridge preservation is 2.5 million. So there'll be each one of those for the northern part of the state and the southern part of the state. So $15 million total, but 7.5 million north, 7.5 million south. Again, the compensation is tied to the individual task order, and you're not guaranteed, that you would get 5 million. That's just the max that we can go up to, or 2.5 million. It might be, that you're at 2 million or 4 million, depending on the project by the time we get done with all the task orders. Again, we reiterate this several times, but the unit prices are locked in at the contract award so that we have all that information already established. So once we have those contracts in place, again, we're going to issue a notice to proceed for the specific task order. That task order is going to have all the specifics of the project. It will have your location. It will have the quantities that we anticipate. Again, we've already got the unit prices associated with that. We'll track the progress for the time associated with those task orders. and stipulated damages would be assessed specific to that task order. So if you've got multiple task orders out there, we're not going to assess you stipulated damages on the whole project as a whole. It's just for the specific task order that's in place. Our initial projects, again, I kind of touched on this already, but structural repair. So we're looking at structural deficiencies. The department's goal is to certainly up the ratings for our bridges and or reduce or remove the bridge loadings. So that's the goal with these structural repair contracts. So that's what we're looking at. Bridge preservation, again, that's more joint repair, seals, deck overlays, things like that. Again, same thing over and over again. Want to be able to do this on multiple bridges, multiple times. So again, IDIQ contracting with multiple task orders to try to get as many projects out there as possible. So what we need from our industry partners, hopefully everybody that got this invite was able to also read through the special provisions. A lot of the special provisions are just changes to our standard contract language that talks about, specific projects, whereas this is more broad-based. So again, the notice to proceed information is a little different. The award information is a little different, but it's still unit price contracting. One thing that we are trying to make sure that we compensate contractors fairly for is mobilization. So again, with each one of these task orders, we're trying to find the best way to compensate the contractor to make sure we're making you whole. We can't really bid one giant lump sum mobilization like we normally do on a contract. It would have to be task order specific. So what we're looking for as far as feedback is, is it a percentage of the overall contract? Is it a percentage of the task order itself and that contract amount? Do we establish for each task order, it's a set dollar figure, whether that's, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. That's the kind of contracting methods we're trying to make sure we cover y'all completely. Because again, each one of these task orders could have varying contract values. So if we do it based on the contract value itself, are you being fully compensated by a percentage? Again, just trying to make sure everybody's compensated correctly. Price escalation as well. Again, the IDIQ contract can extend for up to 5 years based on the task order. And what we don't want is you to have to bid in that risk for 5 years from now. What is, a joint seal going to cost? So we want to make sure we place something out there that, again, fairly compensates you. So is it just the standard, we increase the rates by 2%, 3%, whatever the case may be, or do we establish a specific price index, whether that's, the builder's index or some other index that industry typically uses or feels comfortable with, and we base that price escalation off of an index. So again, we just want to make sure we got feedback on that. We're trying to get this done as quickly as possible. So if you have comments, questions, certainly submit those. Or if you've reviewed the special provisions, if there's modifications or clarifications on that, certainly want you to provide us information on that as well. So I kind of ran through all of that fairly quickly. I know I got a lot of time on the invite for this, so kind of open it up to questions. If anybody has any questions here or online, I should be able to access the chat on here to make sure everything is available, which right now it's just AI stuff requesting information. So does anybody have any questions right now? Would y'all like to mull this over and contact us later?
I have a question.
Yes.
Name's Andre. We just established a new process of establishing a new production facility for special or cold premix. I'm not trying to do sales here. It is solution driven, and we have had a lot of success on elevated motorways. So, the bridging side of it, if you can protect your bridges or your elevated motorways, you come a long way. And if you can do that quick with material that's on hand immediately, stock. So we can put stockpiles or our material is good for a year in a bulker bag, super safe. But it's the access, the speedy access of this, plus it's a permanent repair and it seals. And in most cases, you need less than half the thickness compared to the standard conventional asphalt.
Okay.
But the big thing here is monitoring and verification. Are you planning to implement a new age GPS photo, type system upload into a database to monitor what was repaired, was it done properly, and is it lasting? That whole performance side of things to alleviate not going out there, sending a person out there. You can do it with many other environments. And then the next question, are you planning to link that to a carbon footprint monitoring system and in future getting carbon credits for what you've done?
I think that's well out in the future. For asphalt, I know we had looked at, I forget what it was. It was the Environmental Declaration product, EDP or something like that. But no, right now we're not looking at carbon credits or anything like that. The inspection for this will still be kind of our general normal inspection. So we'll either have CE&I consultants out there to inspect the work that's going on to ensure the quality assurance, or it'll be district personnel.
I could just add to that, Matt, the intention of these initial contracts is to follow our current specifications using the materials that are already specified and allowed on our routine projects. So if you have a new material that you want to use, we would envision that going through the normal review and approval process.
We started
So it would
that.
not be specific. That's not addressed in this IDIQ contracting format. But, if there's a material that's approved, it would be available for use on these contracts.
Yeah, we installed the first lot more than 2 years ago in a number of places. We've added their state roads now being approved, in the process of being approved after lots of discussion. It does also allow for extensive use of different asphalt products. The rafting stuff comes off the roads. Do that as well. It's just make it quicker, make it better, make it cheaper, make it last longer. Brilliant idea, this thing.
So we do have some questions in the chat. Let me get to those real quick, and then Robin, I'll jump to you. Will the contracts include inspection and design or just construction? So there will be some design aspect to it, not that the contractor has to do the design, but we'll tell you again, the bridge, the location, the items, but generally speaking, we would use standard details for patching, that sort of work. So you won't get a full set of plans like you typically do. We will do the construction inspection, again, whether that's CE&I or with our own in-house personnel. There will be inspection done, quality control, quality assurance, all those things are still required. Another question, would DOTD also be considering a cost per day of field overhead item similar to what is being done on larger bid jobs now? So that's the TRO question, time-related overhead. I think that's something we can look at specifically for these projects. I wouldn't expect the TRO to be a substantial cost just because these are fairly quick projects. We're not setting up facilities out there, so hopefully we're doing these quickly. We're not having to set up a field office, porta johns, all those things that are typically associated with time-related overhead. But yes, obviously you'd have a project manager or somebody overseeing these projects, so that would need to be included. But we hadn't really thought about a TRO specific for these projects. The mobilization, the mobilization would depend on the work required. Can you separate items for separate crews? Needs like a milling crew mob, a patching crew mob, an asphalt paving crew mob, et cetera. So that does make sense. It might be difficult just with the number of items associated that we're planning on bidding to have a mobilization associated with each one, but that is something we can look at. So again, any feedback we appreciate, so we'll take a look at that versus just a standard mob for task order. That does kind of make sense depending on if it's a 3-man crew, a 5-man crew, 8-man crew, things like that. We currently use IDIQs with a few parishes for road maintenance. Mobilization is typically tied to the task order dollar amount and bid as an item. Example, the contractor would bid a mobilization price for task orders less than 250,000, 250 to 500,000, and greater than 500,000. So again, another option that's been presented on the chat. So thank y'all for that information. And I don't see any other questions right now. So Reldon, you had one?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask kind of the first question, do you anticipate with these items that it would be designed specific to each task order, or would it be more of a standard detail that would be utilized? And I think you kind of addressed that. If there's anything else you wanted to say on that, that was my question.
No, I mean, again, the patching would be kind of its own detail. Joint seals would have its own detail. That way, again, kind of what you're working on, what's anticipated, what's expected. Again, we still have our standard specifications that we're following, so the information's found in there as well. Are these contracts only for bridge work, or are they going to include asphalt pavement as well? Currently, these are bridge only. That's where we're getting started. I don't anticipate any asphalt work, other than if there's asphalt overlaid over a bridge, but I don't know that we were looking at any of those specifically right now. We are looking to expand this in the future. So we are looking at potentially IDIQs for a test pile program, so we can get that done ahead of bridge jobs, clearing and grubbing, things like that. So we are looking to expand the IDIQ process. This is just the first ones we are rolling out happen to be bridge related. Any other questions? Yes.
I don't have an answer. I'm just curious. You mentioned traffic control, and question I had: how are you going to have y'all thought about how to handle that? Because like a job on I-10 would be different than state highway.
Right. Again, each task order is kind of separate. So that was one thing we had talked about, is potentially leaving that up to negotiation. Again, we negotiate man hours for professional services for IDIQ, and depending on the roadway, if it's a 2-lane road, 4-lane divided, as you say, interstate, traffic control can be different for each one. But if we can establish what are the cost for barrels, barricades, things like that, we can probably work that out. It is similar to the mobilization, but mobilization is a bit more ambiguous than traffic control. Traffic control, we can kind of figure up, based on ADT and speed, you've got to have a lane closure length of, X number of feet. So you can kind of more readily put a cost to that versus mobilization. Can you add a task order after it is executed? So we can do change orders or add additional items to a task order specifically. So yes, we can still add additional items if we get out there and we see there needs to be some additional repair, as long as we already have those items established. We have not looked at just doing a flat out change order for new items of work altogether. I would think we should be able to do that, but just we got to look into that. But if we already have established items for it, or if we have to overrun, certainly that can be part of the same task order. It would just be a modification to that task order. All right. Anything else?
I'd like to just say, Matt, before we adjourn, again, encourage everyone. You can see we have ideas that we have not answered all of our internal questions yet. This does still need to fit within low bid framework of state law, but there's also some, nothing's defined either. So how do we make that work in a contract? We're open to your feedback. Feel free to work through AGC and Reldon to submit your comments, or individually direct to Matt, and we'll take out everything we get under consideration and try to put out what we believe is the best product to be successful with this program.
We did get another question. Will the bidder know ahead of time how the bid items will be distributed? No. Just quite frankly, you're bidding on the item quantities that are established. Each task order is different, so you might utilize some of the items, none of the items for each particular task order. Obviously, we're going to bid a certain number of bid items, and we anticipate utilizing all of those bid items at some point, but it might not be on the same task order, on the same bridge. And again, we might not utilize the full quantity that's established in the IDIQ contract itself. We're indefinite quantity, so we're trying to give you a ballpark as to what we think will be done, but it's not a guarantee. Our award parameters strictly based on pricing. Are there any other items that will be considered for award besides pricing? So currently, we are just utilizing low bid. In the future, as part of that legislation in IDIQ, there may be other factors that are brought in to IDIQ analysis other than just pricing. But for these that we're doing for the bridge work, it is strictly low bid. Yes.
You mentioned, excuse me, you mentioned that initially this would be state money only, but the plan is to legislate and federalize it. So with it being state money only based on previous, will this go through DOTD traditional, or will this go through OLHC, or is that decided yet?
This is DOTD.
Is this DOTD? Okay,
Yes,
all right.
this will go through DOTD.
The follow-up question, different topic, but IDIQ experience that we've seen in the past is typically associated with funding cycles. And so, you say, okay, we think it may be X amount, but it all depends on budget, right? Whether it's recurring or one-time money or whatever the case. Do you anticipate that there would be, and how often would you evaluate that funding to issue task orders? Would that be once per fiscal year, or does that make sense the way I'm asking that?
Yeah. Currently, the budget has already been established for these particular contracts. We are looking at other options. That was actually a discussion the other day, whether it's a capital outlay budget or preservation budgets, things like that. We're looking at other ways to try to make sure we have funding for other IDIQ projects as well. So we're open to any and all. But generally speaking, we will have the funding established for the max contract value already set in place before we sign that IDIQ contract. Contractors will know, hey, the max is this. And once we get up to that, based on 3 task orders, 8 task orders, 15 task orders, once we get to that maximum level, that's where we would have to stop.
If you get more money, it could grow, but at a minimum, you think it would be X.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is
But-
there
Well, no,
any-
I think, so IDIQ that, and they removed the max. So, still within your contract time, could add,
And I think back like to Chad, was it the August timeframe where we get the the reapportionment, or we go back and we get the extra money. So I would think like in that case, if we're able to go back to the Fed and get some additional money, then that would be a great scenario where you could add some.
I mean, I would say right now, Reldon, our intention is to use the money that's been dedicated to this program. This is the first step. We'll see how it works and do what we can learn, and if it can be applied, make sense for the state, who knows where this program, how it will grow, we'll see.
I'll encourage you to look at future government funding. That's happening everywhere else, not only in America, Europe and in Asia. We have had great success because there are entities that's chasing carbon credits or object credits or emission avoidance. And they're willing to throw money into it just so that they have access to it. So we have places, countries where people are doing carbon financing. Roads are getting better and much quicker. Not having money. That is seriously why we've been doing what we've been doing. We're already getting carbon financing in the BC area, etc. Outside companies come in, they're putting some money. We need this road, and we need that. There are PM0039 panel technology. Dollars for every carbon, ton of carbon was sequestered. Funding, money.
Also, the way we typically handle our current IDIQs for professional services, we typically overlap them because again, the max time frame is 5 years. So we make sure that, at the 2-year, 3-year mark, we are putting back out there for additional contracts for IDIQ. That way, if it's C&I services, if it's going to end at that year 5, we want to make sure we have another contract already established that we can then use a task order off of that one if we're getting close to the end of the original IDIQ contract. We did get another question. Who determines how many days for the duration allowed for each task order? That'll be a negotiation as part of the task order. We'll go over and say, this is the bridge we're looking at. These are the quantities, contractor A, you were the low bid. We think it's, 20 days. What do you think it is? You think it's 40 days. All right, maybe 30 days. We'll go back and forth, but it won't be just DOTD has said, get it done in 20 days at that contract value, knowing that, if you got to put 2 crews on it, we would need to change pricing, something like that. So we want to make sure, again, production rates are, realistic. Other questions? If not, I will stop the recording, stop the Zoom meeting, and we can be adjourned. Hopefully this was informative. Again, if you have additional questions, comments, concerns, send those to us. We'll take a look at everything. We'll take the information that you provided to us today and go back and kind of review that and see what's the best way to try to price mobilization, price escalation. Want to make sure everybody kind of contemplates that, mulls it over, sends us some feedback so we can make sure that we're addressing everything. Thank y'all very much.